This morning, just before leaving the hotel to get here, somebody on X, Twitter, took a swipe at me for being fixated with Palestine. It was in response to a post celebrating yesterday's inauguration of the Hague Group. And it seemed that it was a left-wing criticism, that I was fixating, we are fixating with Palestine, and there was a long list of other conflicts and tragedies that I was not paying attention to. We are not paying attention to, like Goma in the Congo, in the Sudan, the killing fields of Ukraine, what's happening in Myanmar, and so on. And I thought about it for a second, and I realized that I'm proud of being fixated with Palestine. Because if this was 1936, we all would have a moral obligation, an ethical duty to be fixated with the Nazis and their persecution of the Jewish people. If this were the 1960s and 70s, we would have a duty to be fixated with apartheid in South Africa. If this was 1981, we would have an obligation to be fixated over the hunger strikes in the Maze prison in Northern Ireland. To be fixated in 1936 about the plight of the Jewish people was not to ignore all the other massacres of the British Empire, for instance, in India, in Kenya. No, you fixate on the issue at hand in order to develop, firstly, your own understanding of what it means to fight against injustice, and then to take this fixation and turn it into a global fight for peace, justice, and progress. This is what we're doing now. In particular, it is essential that this fixation with Palestine is blended with a capacity to recognize the interconnections between our different predicaments. Jeremy and Brig talked about them, the arms trade, the war in the Ukraine. It is astonishing that there is a war happening in Europe, and Europe is cheerleading a United States whose only purpose, let's see what Trump is going to do, but so far the revealed preference of the United States is for a never-ending war. A war that never ends. This is what they want. Like Netanyahu. Netanyahu doesn't want a ceasefire, he doesn't want peace, because his personal interests lie in a never-ending war. And it's astonishing that a Europe, which was supposedly a peace project, the whole point of the European Union, it was celebrated as a way to end wars forever in Europe. And you have a European Union. So, a European Union which betrays its own propaganda as to its raison d'etre by having this half-crazy person, Kaja Kallas, being our foreign and defense representative, the former Prime Minister of Estonia, who 3 weeks before she became the European Union's responsible person for Chief of Defense and Foreign Affairs, advocated in a televised interview the need to break Russia up. Now, this is madness, this is paranoia. Anybody who believes that should be locked up, not be made responsible for Europe's defense and foreign affairs. Now, why did we get there? Why are we, not we, you and me, but our governments, so complicit, not only sending 2,000-pound bombs to Israel, which is what Germany does, but also utterly and constantly supporting the Zionist narrative that the people of Gaza don't have the right to resist, and the equation of the duty to resist with anti-Semitism. How did we get there? We were not always there. I mean, I remember a very right-wing, corrupt, rather unpalatable president of France. Remember Jacques Chirac? You know, once he went to the occupied territories, and he actually had a physical confrontation with the Israeli soldiers. And he called them names, and he called them occupying force. Now, can you imagine Emmanuel Macron doing this today? No way. Even if he believes it, he won't do it. Because he is going to be utterly destroyed by Le Monde, by Nouvel Observateur, by the media. So what happened to Europe? Unless we are fixated with Palestine, we cannot understand it. And let me explain that point. Before I salute you for being here, and before I thank our local group of DM25 for putting up this remarkable meeting today. Thank you very much in advance. Now look, you can see from the moment that Donald Trump gets elected, a man who loathes the European Union, who has put forward a very cogent and logical, I don't say correct, I say logical, rationally structured, not rational, case against the existence of the European Union. Somebody who calls the European Union a leech on American business, and who is going definitely to impose tariffs on German, Dutch exports to the United States. So this man, who is the actual nightmare of the liberal establishment in Holland, in France, in Germany, gets elected. And what do the European leaders do? They compete against one another as to who is going to be the first to leak his boots. So you have a Europe which is completely and utterly dependent. It is a vassal continent of the United States. Now, we are beginning now to understand why you have a situation, think about it. The United States, together with Ukraine and maybe Poland, blew up Nord Stream 1, which is an investment of the Federal Republic of Germany in its fuel resources. Now, I'm not saying it was right to invest in that or wrong to invest in that, but what I'm saying is that, you know, they blew it up. This was a terrorist attack on a German asset of massive value to German industry. I'm not talking about the working class, us leftists, to them, to the capitalists, to Germany. And what do? They look the other way. And they allow the rumors to spread that it was Putin who blew up his own means of supplying Germany with his own natural gas, which makes no sense. And yet you have the BBC, Deutsche Welle, and so on, going along with that. Now, why all this magnitude of total dependence on whatever it is that Washington, D.C. has decided? Well, allow me, because, you know, I have a relationship with certain people of a Dutch extraction, like Jeroen Dijsselbloem, for instance. I have this prior experience of watching them destroy Europe. Because what they did to us here in Greece was not just north-south. It was not just, you know, the busy bees, the mighty, highly productive ants of Germany and of Holland, of the north, having a little tussle against the grasshoppers of the south who laze in the sun and don't work. This was all bullshit. What it was a cynical attempt, after the northern European banks went belly up, to bail them out and to charge the bill to the peoples of Europe, beginning with the ones in the south, because they were the most bankrupt, and then bringing the austerity to the north. This is what they did. We were the guinea pig, the laboratory of austerity. They practiced on that, then they came to you, immediately after us, because we are the blacks of Europe, as I was told by an Irishman when I was a student and a member of Troops Out in England. So they took it to Ireland, then they took it to his country, Portugal. He comes from Portugal. And then from Portugal, they took it to Spain, Italy, France, and then to Germany, and to you folks. Okay, the reason why your social services are diminishing and so on is that it is this process of austerity for the many and largesse, socialism in inverted commas, for the very few. They printed 6 trillion euros to give to the bankers. The bankers gave it to the big business. The big business did not invest it. Why did they not invest it? Because they looked at all of us around you and they said, these people don't have money. So as if we are going to invest in products that these people can't afford. So what did they do with this 6 trillion euros? You know, BASF, Volkswagen, Alstom, and so on. You know what they did? They went to the stock exchange and bought their own shares. Their shares went up, they didn't invest anything. You know what? Guess what? Europe, for 15 years, has not invested in anything. Zero net investment in Europe. This has never happened in the history of the universe, not the world. To have such a rich continent with all these savings and money and profits and real estate, not investing. But the Chinese and the Americans invested in greener technologies, in what I call cloud capital, algorithms, AI, and all that. And you know what? We've become the stupid continent. We missed out on one whole technological revolution. So, you know, we've already entered, after all these 15 years, a steady process of secular stagnation. This is not a crisis that will go down and then will go up. For the next 50 years, we're condemned to stagnate as a continent. When a continent like Europe, which is so powerful and so rich, stagnates, what happens is the politics starts fragmenting. This is why Emmanuel Macron doesn't even have the guts of Jacques Chirac, or why Olaf Scholz cannot even be like, you know, Schroeder, who said no to the invasion of Iraq. The despicable, poor excuse for human nature Schroeder was, but at least he said no to the invasion of Iraq.